This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
But we have 2 guests coming on right now. My good friend John Fund, who you all know, who is over 20 years on the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. He is now National Review. He works with me at Unleashed Prosperity. He's the world's expert on election reform, which is obviously a huge issue. So John Fund is joining us, and I believe we also have Tom Del Bacaro on. Tom was the chairman of the Republican Party in California for many years. He is the author of many books, real expert on the economy and politics. So, gentlemen, thanks. I think we have you both on. Thanks for joining. Tom Del Bacaro, let's start with you. Tell me how you think Trump is doing so far, Tom, what he's doing right and maybe what he's doing wrong.
Well, first of all, I'm going to agree with you on daylight savings time, but
thank you.
I'm not going to let you vote Democrat ever, so let's just move on from there.
All right, good.
So, in general, his incredible efficiency in having an agenda is unseen in television history, and I think it's very effective. But I do have a couple of criticisms.
Okay.
They really need to change their marketing on their downsizing of government. Mm-hmm. They need to be saying, take the $20 billion that the EP, Lee Zeldin is doing a marvelous job. Take that $20 billion he's saving. That is the equivalent of over 900,000 Social Security benefits for a year for 900,000 people. He needs to place all of this in the context of we are saving this money because it will save Social Security. To just say I am cutting does not have the same constituency as saying I am saving.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Excellent point. And I also like your point, Tom, that when we put these numbers, because look, nobody can tell the difference between millions, billions, trillions. These numbers are so gigantic. It doesn't make any sense to anyone. When you say, hey, we can have 1 million people whose Social Security, this is equivalent to giving 1 million people a Social Security benefit and making sure their benefits aren't cut. That's a big deal.
Yes. So you have to do it in terms people understand. Going to your sequences discussion, let's put it not just in economic terms, but in political terms.
Right.
Because Republicans are getting squeamish about those things instead of focusing on what they really need to focus on, which is creating this certainty for investors going forward so that they know the next 20 years. And by scaring Republicans and not marketing as well. But look, could you imagine where we'd be if the woman I ran against for 2016, Kamala Harris, was the president of the United States? So I'm pretty happy in general.
So remind me of your new book that just came out a few months ago.
Yeah, The Lessons of the American Civilization, which Chapter 10 is called America, Capitalism, and Socialism. It talks about this progression in America and how socialism became acceptable, but how very dangerous it would be in America because America only has a DNA of those seeking opportunity. We don't all share the same DNA like they do in Japan or in France or these other. Our DNA is opportunity. Socialism destroys opportunity and would tear America apart.
So we also have on the line John Fund, who was with the Wall Street Journal for many, many, many years, wrote editorials, and was one of the stars at the editorial page for, I think, 2 decades, and is now with National Review. John, are you on?
Yes, thank you.
So thanks for joining. Okay, John, I wanted to just slightly shift the topic, and I'd like Tom's reaction to this as well. The Democrats, they are lost in the wilderness. I think that everyone is so disgusted. Even my Democratic friends, John, are disgusted with their performance during the State of the Union. It seems to me like it's become the AOC party, the 12% of Americans who are hard left. Is there a savior to the Democratic Party? How did this happen that the Democratic Party has gone off the deep end?
Well, a mass political party, which has to win 51% of the vote, cannot allow itself to be dominated by a collection of extremely selfish special interests, social workers, professors, intellectuals, pointy-headed economists. That's not even close to a majority, and they almost always have wrong ideas.
And yet that's what's happened, though. Those are the people who control the party now.
Well, I'll give you an example. Gavin Newsom, over the weekend, actually said, now he didn't say he was going to do anything about it, but he said it is fundamentally unfair to have biologically male athletes compete against female athletes.
Right.
And that's unfair in a whole range of things.
Hold on, John, just 1 second, just because I want to pause right there. What you just said, I think 90% of Americans would. It's a no-brainer. It's an obvious point. The fact that that's even controversial tells you a lot about the Democratic Party.
The polls show it's about 85%.
Okay, 85, right.
But there's an undecided group. So you're probably right. It's when you've sorted out, it's probably about 90%. Well, Andrew Sullivan, who's been a big activist for gay marriage and other things, he's probably one of the most prominent gays in America, and he's not on the right. He says the Democratic Party has been captured by a donor class and a group of social issue fanatics, and the social issue fanatics literally have scared the Democratic Party into silence on this issue. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is look at what the reaction was to Trump's speech, no matter what he said, even if he celebrated the 13-year-old brain cancer survivor or celebrated a trans athlete who had recovered from traumatic brain injuries. They wouldn't clap. They wouldn't stand up. So they literally are intimidated. Now, I remember the days when, people always used to taunt Republicans and say, you're so scared of the NRA, you won't look at any gun control measures. Well, this is nothing compared to the fear that has been that the Democrats are under. Because think about this. Not a single Democrat voted to take away federal funding from teams that allow biological males to compete against females. Not a single Democrat in the Senate.
Yeah, idiot. So, Tom, I think John Fund just nailed it. You live in I don't think, do you still live in California, Tom? I know you were.
I have a home in California, and I'm glad John pointed out what others haven't, which is Newsom didn't promise to do anything. But John was about to say how he was excoriated by the left in California for simply suggesting
something
that
that's obvious.
There is a difference. The problem for the Democrats is once socialism infects a party, it holds on to it. I'm writing a piece about how the Democrats are going into the wilderness like the Labor Party did in England. So the Democrats are a one-trick pony. Government imposition, whether it's a program or a social. The only thing they know is the government lever, and that isn't popular these days because of inflation, because people want to have jobs. The Latino community wants to have jobs, not handouts. So their problem is that they don't have any ideas other than government, and government's not in fashion right now.
Well, I'll give you another example because you're both making great points. First, I'll ask you, Tom, and then John, I'd like your reaction to this. The two demographic groups in particular, the Democrats are just seeing melt away. One of the demographics is just working class, blue collar Americans who once were the kind of backbone of the FDR Democratic Party. And the other is, which I find really interesting, is young people. And in fact, in 2016, Trump did not do well at all with young people. Young people are now trending towards the Republicans, partly because, Trump is sort of pro-technology, pro-crypto. And I find I think both of those trends are really interesting, and they are and by the way, we have a lot of Democrats listening to the show. I love the fact that we have Democrats, independents, Republicans, and I'm not a rah-rah Republican. I'm not here to tell people, the Republicans are the salvation, because they're not. But what do you make of those two trends, working class Americans and young people?
Well, under FDR, working class Americans, his programs were full employment acts, Truman as well. He actually wanted people to have private sector jobs. Right. That doesn't apply today. As far as kids, if you remember the Reagan Revolution, the 18 to 20-something-year-olds who are still Reaganites.
Good point.
Again, they got jobs that they couldn't get under Carter, and that's the issue today. America still is a country of opportunity, and kids today want to get on the ladder. They don't want to be in their parents' basement like they were under Obama.
John?
Clearly, what people want is economic opportunity. And they realize that we have an economy right now in which, as Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said on Friday, 25% of our nation's economic output gets flowed through Washington, D.C., the Beltway, Area Code 202, as he put it. In other words, we have a country where almost 50% of the resources, if you add in state and local government, is flowing through or distributed by government. That is no longer a private sector economy. And what Bessent said is that the future of America has to be a smaller, leaner, more transparent, more efficient government and a bigger, more vibrant, innovative private sector. Otherwise, our debt, and everybody's right on this, both parties have been bad on the debt and the spending, our debt will literally kill us.
So, Tom and John, can you guys hold over? Because this is a fascinating conversation. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in about 60 seconds, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
This is More Money with economist Steve Moore. Now, Steve Moore.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. This is WABC, the number one talk radio station in these United States. Always a privilege to be in front of this microphone from 1 to 3 p.m. And we are live. We are in color. We, unlike almost every radio station you could be listening to right now, which is just playing canned commercials and infomercials, we have live coverage. And in fact, we have two of the best political analysts in the country on right now. Tom Del Bacaro, who was the former GOP chairman of the party, the Republican Party in California, believe it or not. His great new book is called The Lessons of the American Civilization. And someone once called him the next great Jack Kemp, and that was me. And I think you are, Tom. And of course, John Fund, who's been a friend and colleague for, 30 some years. John was many, many years one of the chief political writers for the Wall Street Journal editorial board. He has been with National Review. You see him on Fox News all the time. And of course, he works with me at Unleash Prosperity. And I hope everyone is getting the Unleash Prosperity hotline. To get that, it's free. Just go to unleashprosperity.com. Okay, gentlemen, thank you for holding. I took some callers earlier in the show because I'd love to hear what our listeners are thinking and saying. And I'll start with you, John, on this. Some of them said, I like Trump. It's just too much Trump. He's too much Trump. And, he's got a new initiative every couple of hours. And it made me think, and look, I am a great admirer of this president. Not everything he does. I don't like his terrorists, but I like almost everything else. But John, is there a risk here of kind of Trump fatigue?
Well, look, trying to get Donald Trump not to want the spotlight shown on him is impossible.
Okay.
He wants the Trump show to be on all the time. He wants to live rent-free in all of our heads.
Right.
So that's not going to happen. What I think he needs to do, though, is he needs to recognize this. It's one thing to have Trump fatigue. It's another thing to have Trump whiplash, where he's constantly changing signals, changing the plays on the football field. And people can't track. I mean, as far as I can tell, last week, if you looked at the Canadian-Mexican tariffs, it was on again, off again partially, on again.
Yes.
I mean, You can't do that because the markets alone. Look at what happened to the markets last week.
Oh, I know. John, let me just interrupt you for 1 second.
Not because of the tariffs, but because of the uncertainty.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you for 1 second because you're making a great point. And I am looking at the front page of the Wall Street Journal as you speak, John, and it says stocks rise and fall this week, and it just shows an incredibly jittery stock market, up one day, down the other, up, down, and it seems to, Tom, it seems to correspond with Trump's position on tariffs, which I happen to agree with John Fund that you can't have one day you're going to have a 20% tariff, the next day it's off on. I talked to people who run factories and they said, like, this is causing supply chain problems with us. We get our parts from Canada or Mexico and one day we can bring them in, the next day they can't. So what do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I want to get about 30,000-foot level here. Trump is fixing a lot of social issues related to men and women's sports and the like, and the border especially. But those things will be quickly forgotten because when things like that are fixed, they drop from people's mind. The economy, though, is always in people's mind.
That's a great
that's
point.
why your sequencing thing is so important here. The Golda Meir used to say, if you're going to do tough things, do them all at once and in the beginning, and then the benefits will be seen later. But because the economy, as you talked about on Fox yesterday, that he inherited, had so many problems, he can't do the things that John Fund so expertly describes because it's taking away from his momentum unnecessarily.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, I think as I said, I agree with about 90% of the things he's doing. I would like John, and I've been a Johnny one note on this, but he ought to be really focusing on the critical nature of getting this tax cut done. He should be blasting Democrats for wanting a $4 trillion tax increase. But I believe a little bit, the only thing, by the way, Tom, I agree with everything you said, except I do think Americans are going to be incredibly appreciative of what he's doing on the border right now in terms of, the fact that we went from 10,000 illegal border crossings a day to now less than 500. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment. But John, can we get him back on the tax cut message?
Well, he needs to be presented with clear alternatives that he can lobby members for on the tax cut. The Republicans have to first get through that continuing resolution so the government doesn't shut down. That's important. Then they have to decide probably on two bills. There's going to be a Senate bill and there's going to be a House bill.
Yep.
But as soon as possible, Trump has to be given a sheet of paper with his talking points, and he has to make phone calls. It'll be mostly to the House members because the Senate, there's enough votes. And he'll simply say, I need you. The economy needs you. The country needs you. I don't care about your parochial interest. You have to vote for this.
Absolutely, 100%. And, the Republicans in the House, Tom, passed what I believe is a very good reconciliation bill that's the first step to getting this tax cut bill done. I want the Senate to frankly, I like the House bill. Why can't the Senate just pass the House bill, get this signed, sealed, and delivered by Memorial Day? The economy needs a pickup, John and Tom. The employment report that came out.
You just said the magic word. The Senate. The senators are elitists. They're down in the House. Have you ever heard of a senator taking a House idea and not changing it? Ever?
Right. Well, Tom, what do you say about that?
John, of course, is so right on this particular issue. My point earlier about the border is, yes, it's a great accomplishment, but on next election day, 18 months, 19 months from now, they're going to be voting on the economy.
Yes,
and
that's true.
What Trump needs to say to these Republicans, and John said it, he said they're parochial interests. He needs to say to them, look, we can do all these other things, but at the end of the day, if we don't get this tax thing right, you're going to lose your seats. And that has to be the message. Again,
that's right.
It's the sequencing thing. Larry was talking about this yesterday as well. By putting the tariffs ahead of the tax cuts, you jeopardize getting the economy running up so it has
right.
some momentum. Now we have, look, we're getting off the sugar high. Scott Bessent's 100% right on that. But again, it's the sequencing thing. I do, before we leave, since John's a refugee of California as well, on my podcast I talked this weekend, California is now a battleground state. What do I mean by that?
Wow.
The 2 seats in Orange County that Scott Baugh ran, of the former Katie Porter seat and the Michelle Steele seat, the $81 million were spent on those 2 seats in the last election. California is now the last battleground for control of the House, and Americans need to understand how important that is long term.
It is. Well, we need every possible seat we can get. John, we literally have about 45 seconds left. Any last words on? Do you think California can possibly be in play even in some of these local districts?
There's an old saying about the United States, and it applies even more to California. If you exhaust all their possibilities, you end up doing the right thing. And California is just about at that point. Look, I think the mayor of Los Angeles is going to be recalled. I think Gavin Newsom is going to leave office with his tail tucked between his legs and a record low on approval rating. And I think there is, at the minimum, there is a chance for a business-oriented Democrat. Hello, Rick Caruso, who almost became mayor of Los Angeles. Rick Caruso, I think he's going to run for governor of California.
Well, we need
as a Democrat.
Well, we need it, John, because, we can't – California is such a gigantic part of our economy. We need California to get with the program. I hope you guys are right. That was Tom Del Bacaro and John Fund.